Good morning, good afternoon and good evening everybody. Thanks for taking another look at one of my videos. This time around I'm doing a 1985 Ford RS2000. Not this one because it's a bit of a minter in a box from when I was a kid still. Instead, this little dog, a 1985 Super GT version. It's fair to say then that I am a bit partial to these Escorts. I remember them as a kid, sitting in front of the TV, watching the professionals, ragging the RS2000s around, trying to do some of the chase scenes. Really loved them. I remember them in the rallies. I think my earliest memory was back in the early 80s, even the late 70s. Well, no, probably about 81, 82, watching some of the older cars come through in the RAC rally with my dad. Always loved them. Now, the Matchbox version, there was two. There was the 78 version, which was the metal-based one. And then they did this Super GT. Why they called it a Super GT, I don't know. Plastic-based, rather light in comparison, so it felt cheap. You had these darkened windows. Don't really know what was going on there. The RS2000 had this little tow bar on the back, and they always made me laugh because of all the extras and the caravans and trailers you could get for them, all the little accessories. So why they sort of carried over the little hump on the back, presumably the moulding was different to a casting moulding. I don't quite know the process, but it's got ribs on the bottom of the plastic chassis, so they would have been different. I don't know why they carried that over, but by and large it was a cheapened version that they did in the late 80s. Don't quite know why, but nevertheless, here we have one. Now, the first video I ever did on this channel was an RS2000. Got quite a few likes, and it's what's made me make this channel grow and grow and grow. I always wanted to do a rally version, as you know of my other videos. I like doing all the race car liveries and whatnot. So I thought I need to address this and get back to doing it. Now, I've already stripped the paint loads of times on these cars, and there's a video dedicated to that, so I won't waste any time on that one. If you want to take a look, I'll put it in the description. But for now, here we have this Super GT. I'm going to call it the RS2000 because it is the RS2000. As always, a little bit pitted underneath. It's an old car still. Loads of casting lines. They ripped us off blatantly with no interior under them darkened windows, but they still had this great little chassis, although it did, well, I say the little spring holding it in, it's just snapped there, but over time it's inevitable, it's going to rust up. Really good little idea though. Little piercing in the middle, and when they slip it down onto that little shaft in the middle, it would grip and wouldn't come back the other way, as the little pips, if you like, would dig into the post. So that's broken anyway now, so I'm going to have to make another one. But underneath, just a replica of the metal one really. Nothing too different other than it being plastic. So first things first, I want to make this into a flat nose one. The RS2000 had this little fiberglass nose on the front with these quad headlamps and whatnot. So all I'm going to do is just flatten off that front and give it that flat nose look, which I actually preferred, funnily enough. Looking back when I had an RS Turbo and a Sierra Cosworth many years ago, when we used to go to the RS Owners Club, I used to love these RS2000s, but now my taste has completely changed and I really like the flat-nosed single headlight ones. So all I'm going to do is I've just put some tape across the front just to line up roughly where it's going to be flat on the front, and I've used my grinding wheel here just to flatten it down, and then again with tape just to give me better guidelines, because my eyes aren't brilliant when I'm staring down at these unprimed grey cast cars. I'm just going to use this little jeweler's saw just to cut these lines as straight as I possibly can, and this time I'm using quite a thicker tooth, more toothed saw blade. That's such good grammar, I don't know. 30 tooth, just so it bites into it a lot easier. I'm not doing a lot of strokes, just to get a nice clean cut and get rid of that bonnet area, because I'm going to add a bit more detail into this car. On the other ones, I always put the interiors, which inevitably I'm going to have to do on this one now. But I wanted to go a little bit further on this one and put an engine bay in this. So for now, I've just whipped that front nose cone off in readiness to, well, sorry, the bonnet side of it. I'm going to rip or saw off that front nose cone in a short while. But it's only a millimetre, if that. Just that little angle, just enough to get that cast in front. So now this grille, and this is the reason why I wanted to use this cheaper Super GT version, trying to cut through the metal one. Well, to be fair, all my metal ones that I've got are pretty decent actually, so I don't want to hack into them, but I've got quite a few of these cheaper versions. So obviously the plastic chassis and this plastic nose cone is a lot easier to cut through. So here I am now, just shaving it off, and I've used this same little jeweler's saw again because it's such fine, it's really nice and not jaggedy. God, I'm coming out with some good words, aren't I? I don't even think that's a word. So once that is out of the way, I'll still keep it anyway. I've got a little graveyard full of parts, so I'm going to make a Frankenstein car out of them all one day. But now we've got the basis of the flat nosed sort of RS1800 and 2 litre Mexico style cars. First things first though, I've got to do some forest arches, and I've used this stuff before, this Epo putty. I've got some left over which I've just kept in a bag, and it's literally 2 parts, hardener and resin. Cut the equal amounts. You should really use different knives for each hardener and resin so you don't contaminate it, but I don't use it that much. I really don't mind wasting the little bits, and you really do wait. I mean, I literally, I don't know, 10mm cut off each one, and I still have loads and loads left over. And you know, even when you try and make the arches, spoilers, body kits, you name it, you still got loads left over anyway. So I've got loads of little parts that I could really file down and make into little fire extinguishers and all sorts. So this stuff lasts forever. It's made for aquariums actually, for putting like rockery sceneries and stuff like that together underwater. So it does say it hardens in about 2 hours, but to be fair, sometimes when I've come to sand them off and cut them off, it's like chewing gum in the middle, it hasn't quite dried, so I tend to leave it for 24 hours to be honest. So you can use tin foil, not tin foil, like a tin can or even a pen or something like that to fill the arches in, so when you come to do this it's nicely rounded. But I prefer to sand them down afterwards rather than do that route, which I'll show you in a minute. But for now, that is what it looks like, nice and marshmallowy, almost like a sweet, that one. So I'll quickly, over a 24-hour period of course, just send some attention to this bonnet, and underneath the bonnet, or hood if you're in the States, my American friends, my biggest demographic other than UK is the US, so I'll call it the hood. Just need to trim what was the post for the chassis to the body, the rivet post. We don't need that anymore because it's the bonnet, so the engine bay will sit in there, so I'll just lop that off and grind down the other little nipples or standoffs or whatever you want to call it underneath, just to make it a little bit flatter. And then we can paint that when we paint the chassis later on. But I'll just address this little suspension chassis plate thingamajig. I'm not going to go out and buy a load of spring steel, so I'm just going to use some 2mm thick styrene cut to length, and it'll do enough to spring it down. If you use it any thinner than this, the styrene, it'll just bend and stay. Well, it won't even have the strength to actually make it suspension. Wouldn't even have, is that the word? It wouldn't even have the strength to keep the wheels and tyres there basically. So at least having it this thick will be enough to keep the wheels in place and give it just enough flex to act like suspension. So this is my method in my madness to doing this. So just replicated the silver spring steel version, Just do the quick pilot hole, and then the final hole now, and then I'll simply glue it, really, CA glue it into place. But essentially what we're going to have is something like this. And I'll just show you just enough to flex it. It'll act in the same manner basically, though it's twice, 3 times thicker than the original, but it'll do. And I'll just quickly whip off these other little nipples again, I got them on my mind. Some little nipples just off the side there, what essentially would have held in from the original silver casting the other interior, but it hasn't got any anyway, so I don't know why they even put that in. So for wheels on this, I'm using some super mini light replicas from a gentleman off, well, I found him on Instagram, but it's through his Shapeways store, and the fantastic little replicas, which I'll show you once they're painted up in a minute, these little mini lights. He actually asked me what wheels I would like, and I actually requested this, and he did them in super quick fashion and put them up for sale for everybody. So take a look at his range. I've used them on a few cars. They really are super detailed, first class, good items. And all I'm doing is, like I do with all my cars, spray them with some primer, and I use standard car automotive primer. I have used the Tamiya Superfine stuff in the past, and other people have keep mentioning it, but to be fair, I haven't used any on these diecast. I just use the automotive stuff. It seems to work perfectly fine for me, so I'm more than happy with it. And all I'm doing now is just giving it a Tamiya TS silver anodized look to the proceedings, and there you go. You can see better detail now. They look really good. Super replica wheels, like all of his wheels actually. You must take a look. They really do look the business. But of course I can paint them in all colours I want for whatever car I do. So there you go, there's the mini light replicas. So going back to the car now, and to get these arches less cartoon like and more like the forest arches they should be, and I'm using my little sander, belt driven sander, just to get that little bit of extra precision in, and you want uniformity. I'm gonna have some good words on this, aren't I, boys? Here we go. And I'll just now take the shape into the actual round part of the arch itself. And like I say, I prefer to do this way. I don't quite know why I prefer to do it. Maybe because I keep cutting my fingers every time when I'm doing the tin can version, or whenever I try and sellotape pens to it, I always end up knocking it. So it's more hassle when I'm putting it on than when I'm trying to actually sand them afterwards. So I prefer to do this one. And all I do is I just do 3 or 4 passes of it until I can start to take the shine off the inner arch, and you know you've hit the metal the other side, and they're pretty much rounded to the contour of the original arch. And there you have the basis of it really. There is still some handwork to do just to round off the edges, specifically on this car, and bevel the edges a little bit and chamfer them in on the bottom corners and whatnot. So here we have the forest arched rally versions that used to fly up and down the country, well, all around Europe actually. It was quite the car, the Mark II Escort, back in its day. Still is actually, still heavily used now. I think even Ken Block, I think Ken Block's done one. Well, it won't have the original engine in, no doubt, but I'm pretty sure I've seen a Mark II Ken Block somewhere. So all I've done for the wheels, sorry, the axles this time, is used paper clips again. I've just unbent them, tapped them out, added a little bit of styrene just to space the wheels out so it sits in line with the arches and doesn't go too far in. Used to make me laugh back in the day when you'd see some of these cars, not just Mark II Escorts, but Mark III Escorts, but well, even not just Escorts, when people used to put body kits back on the cars when I was a lad. and they hadn't put the right wheels on, and they sat so far under it was hilarious. You know, you used to think, God damn it, why have you gone to that much trouble when you got crap wheels on it? You know, at least get some decent wheels and fill them arches. But that's what I've done. I've just put a bit of spacers on it. So now to make this flat front, obviously I'm going to use my beloved Styrene, and I just used a little 1mm section on this. Simply cut to length and width, and it's not an exact science. I haven't drawn anything for this one. I've literally offered everything up and just worked my way along. Really forgiving stuff to work with, and again, I haven't split into any new sheets. All this stuff really has been stuff that I've had piles and piles and piles of for at least, God, I'd like to say 20 years, but it's at least 15 years. I know I haven't bought any since I've been in the house I'm in now, so it's got to be at least 16 years old, I guess. So all this is just essentially a scrap pile of stuff I've got. Tubes, flat sheets, sections, you name it. So if you ever invest in this stuff to make some models with, it will literally last you a lifetime. I can't ever see me ever having to buy any anytime soon anyway. So here what I've done is I've just cut a little slither off some tube to replicate the headlights, and now you may just be able to make out the little slither I've cut out at the top as well. So once it sits in line with the body afterwards, I can put the Slum Panel on, but I'll come to that in a minute. So just to replicate the grille, I'm cutting some super fine, because I don't know the diameter of this, I'm calling this super fine, because I haven't looked at the packet. Super fine round bar section, and yes, it's painful to watch, but it's even more painful to try and get into places. It's a pain in the ass. There we go. So once I've put a few in line on there, just dab a little bit of MAC on, and the thinner stuff literally bonds within a second, so you know it's pretty much stuck there straight away. So once I've put a few of these in line to replicate the bars of the grille, you can just cut the little profile away to match the headlights around it as well, without no worry about cutting through. It's literally hairline, this stuff. It's really super fine, and just cut it round, and here we have the start of the grille. Starting to look more like the Escort that I love now. I suppose there's lots of room in this engine bay as well. I could have put some LEDs in it now I'm watching it back, so maybe that's for another one. So I'll just quickly do a little Slum Panel across the top here. Just cut out to this groove, and I'll put some fine holes in just to replicate the bonnet latch holes, little grabber holes for the latch of the bonnet. There you go, something like that. Then glued on, and I've literally just put some standard CA glue on it and a little bit of activator just to flash it off super quick, and there we have start of a Mark II rally. Looking pretty sweet. Still a bit of work to do on that body though afterwards as well. So here's the Slum Panel. I'm just going to put in between the interior and the engine bay. I won't bore you with that one. It's literally a flat sheet, 1mm cut to section, glued in place. And with this I'll use a toothpick. Just showing you little tips here. I've mentioned these in the past, you know. I hate the little needle applicators. I hate trying to squeeze it out the bottle. I always use something like a cocktail stick or a toothpick or something I can get my hands on like that, your little throwaway item if you like, because you can really get into the nooks and crannies a little bit easier. But the CA glue on this styrene, to glue it to something else like this die cast body here, it literally does it again in seconds. wouldn't say melts it, it just seems to stick super quick. So onto the inner wings, and I'm just going to use a little strip, cut to shape or cut to length and width, and then I've cut a little round tube section in half to make a semi tube. No, a rounded semi profile. I don't know what the word is to use. I've cut a tube in half down the middle to replicate the round end a bit. There you go. This is what I've done. And then just cut some little panels. I'm not too bothered about the gaps because this little styrene, liquid styrene, I put it in a video quite a while back, used in modelling for donkey's years, all the little leftover bits, mix it with some glue, you have the liquid stuff, and it's a bit like decorator's caulk now, I suppose. You can just fill in the lines, fill in the gaps, and seal it all up really, so it looks factory. It looks like it's a moulding, I suppose. So there you go. Just need to do the other side now, but that's sort of the inner arch, and thankfully on a Mark II Escort they're quite square and blocky, so I haven't got to worry too much about the contours and getting it all looking right, because they were quite blocky anyway, thankfully, so it's quite forgiving doing this. So this little bulkhead at the back, it had a funny shape in the Escort where it housed I suppose brake reservoirs and stuff like that, and I've used a super, I think it's like 0.3 of a mil thick, it's like paper, this styrene. It bends dead easy, but it won't flex back. So here all I've done is bent it. It's just staying in place just by being wedged in between the two arches really, so it's dead easy to cut. Like I say, it's like paper, dead easy to glue on. And there we have the most of the engine bay. The engine block itself, I could make an entire video on this, and I think I'm going to do that because I'm going to take far too much time doing that. So I think I'll do that as a standalone item and put them in one of my Styrene Diaries entries. So for that, well, assuming you'll want to see that, and I've cut my thumb as well, which really hurt. Not in this, I'd cut it with a bread knife when I had some friends around, don't ask. I'd had too much to drink. But anyway, I'll do a separate video on that. If you'll want me to do that, just let me know in the comments, and I will do, and I'll add it to the Styrene Diaries. Otherwise, this video will drag on quite a lot. But essentially, it's simple. Think of it as like Lego, like I always keep saying when you build these things. It's square, chunky parts, flat parts. You just literally keep cutting bits, sticking it together, drill a few holes. Sounds easy, and it really is easy. It's just having the right tools and having a bit of patience. And for instance, just this little engine block here, I'll just show you a couple of little steps here. It's made up of literally 3 parts. Some round parts, 4 parts even, 2 different sized round parts for the tubes and what have you, square part for the main bit, and then some flat sheet cut for the little casting profiles of the head, if you like. So if I'd have sat here videoing all this, it probably would be another 25-30 minutes. So as I say, if you want me to show you that, I'll show you that. But here is the final engine I've done for this one, with some little side draft carbs on it. But there you have my little version. Onto the interior. I like to make these, so here's all my other little bits of leftovers. I'll crack on and do one. I'll skip very quickly on this because I've done it in so many videos, and again I've got a big standalone how to make interiors out of styrene, so I'll put that link in the description as well. But I'll flirt over this very quick, and whilst I do it and you watch this, I'll quickly say, if you like these videos, please don't forget to subscribe. I've started looking at all my analytics and analysing my statistics, and only 20% of people who watch these are subscribers. There's a massive 80% that watch all my videos that aren't subscribed. So if you like these videos, please, 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 you don't have to comment, you don't have to give me a thumbs up, but click the subscribe button and you'll get to see all the latest ones that I've got coming out, and you get to see more info from me. So please, please, please ring the bell, hit the subscribe button, and I really appreciate it. So back onto this interior, and again, like Lego, it's just keep cutting sheets, keep cutting sections, keep adding it. It takes probably a night's work. Put some tunes on in the background and just sit along and just go with the flow, really. Keep looking at pictures on Pinterest as I do, just to get some. It doesn't have to be Pinterest, it could be Google Images, you can look wherever you want, but it just got a lot on there, really. So somewhere to look at for a little bit of inspiration. So here is mine, other than the seats from the edition 6 from Neil at edition 6. I'll put his link in the description again, but other than that, all hand built. A little gear stick and a handbrake in this one. One other little addition I want to add is the dreadful tin can stuff that I tend to cut myself on, so I'll quickly be as quick as I can when safe with this. But I want to do a little foot plate for the co-driver, and I'm very simply, I'm doing this pretty much in real time as well. So that's how fast I'm doing it, is I'm using a little scriber just to punch some holes down into it, and then I'll bend it to shape, and as quick as that, and it really was a minute or so, you got yourself a little footrest for the rally co-driver. Don't look too bad. It emphasises the detail when you're looking at this. So things so small with these lenses, it throws up things that you think, crikey, I can't see that with my naked eye. It looks kind of crap now, but it's not too bad when you're holding it in your hand. So here I'm just doing some inner arches now. Again, rough profile, and then once it's in place and set, I'll trim it back again. If you sit there trying to make some things precise, you'll be there forever in a day, and you'll keep wasting material after material. So sometimes I'll oversize it, if you like, and then trim it back afterwards. So that's the inner arches. So onto the roll cage this time. I'm going back to my paperclip method, only because styrene, after you bend it, being so thin, sometimes it then snaps when you try and glue it together. That other metal floral wire that I had on my last video took about a week to heat up and solder together, so I'm going to do something weird and wonderful with that lot. So I'll go back to making these paperclip ones. So I've just made some tube as the mounting points because it's easier, and all I'm going to do is hammer out straight some of these paperclips again. Don't know how many times can I say paperclips in this video, probably about another 6 times. So here's a straightened paperclip, and I'm literally going to follow the profile with this paperclip of the car, and by holding said paperclip with pliers, you can bend it super easy, and it's really easy to solder as well. It gets the heat into there really quickly, and there you go. Offer it up against the car just to make sure you're going in the right direction, and all looks pretty good on that one. So we'll get cracking and solder that together. I did all that bit without moving my mouth because I'm a magician, you know. Over to the soldering bit, and I'll just dollop a little bit of flux on it just to help with adhesion. I don't know what you'd call it. It makes it nice and clean. And there you go, as quick as that. If you remember watching my other video with that floral wire, it was painful. I massively edited that because how long it took me. But with this, it's a lot quicker. So once you've done that, inevitably it'll be a little bit blobby on this fine scale, so you can just file it down to shape and come up with something like that. It probably needs a little bit more work, but there you go. That's roughly how we get on with it being metal, essentially. Really are strong. You can put a bit of weight on it and it won't flex. So that is pretty much a bare rolling shell. A little bit of a radiator I've put in there, you can just about see, but that is coming together quite a bit different to its original twin headlight front snoot nose of the RS2000 that it was originally, but I'll just add some more details later on as we go along, so like some little wing mirrors here, side mirrors to go on it, and I'll make up some little spotlights, and I'll make also an exhaust and whatever out of some ferrules and whatnot. But here you have pretty much a finished car, all painted white, primed white, and ready to accept the final coat of paint and final coat of detailing and the decals, which I will make available also on my website. But there's quite a few liveries to choose from. I really don't know, but to be completely honest, they have made more than one. Let's be honest. Be rude not to with how amount I've got piled up, so there will be a few variants. So this is what it originally looked like, the Super GT aka RS2000, and here are my take on the cars in both the Rothmans Ari Vatman style and the Belga to match the transit van that I made. It was inevitable I was going to do two. I could have done quite a few more. Well, I have done a few more, but that's for a later date. But here you can see, well, in fact, what I'll do is I'll just quickly pick them up and show you some of the closer details. And starting with the Rothmans version, I've put some spotlights on the front, I've done the engine bay there, I've done some little brake reservoirs and stuff, new glass, obviously all the interior, some harnesses on the bucket seats, wing mirrors, done the little quarter glass on the side with the little bar, roll bar, number plates, and an exhaust. Makes a big difference putting the number plates on, I think, as well. I've done a bit of mud on the side of this one as well, a little bit of dirt just to showcase. And like a klutz, I lost the bonnet to this one, so I had to make another one out of styrene just to fit on the top there. But there's the Rothmans version. So on to the Belga, and I was always going to do the Belga first, but the Rothmans and well, quite a few of them also got the itch to make. So this was always the original planned version. But again, engine bay, harnesses, interior, different wheels, exhaust, the new glass, all the wheels work, and that's actually one of my favourites, actually, the Belga race colours. So here we have them both side by side, and the old dog, as I say, I've got piles of these, so there's going to be a few more. But there's the difference between the two. My little versions versus the originals, front, side, back. Just goes to show you, just by whipping a bit of paint off and detailing them up a bit, you can make some cracking little replicas out of these Matchbox and Hot Wheels cars. I mean, even these old ones, you know. And there you go, that shows off the arches quite a bit more on that version there. The new glass there, just made out of the styrene stuff. And the little quarter side windows, wing mirrors. I'm just waffling now because I haven't got any music to put over the top. People didn't want me to put music on, so I'm just going to keep talking. There you go. There's the inside, a bit of a close-up of the engine bays. Use some electrical wire that I have just from old bits of things that are broken that I tend to salvage and think, oh, can come in useful. I can use them as some ignition leads on a miniature car. Why not, you know? The exhaust manifold I used solder wire because it's really easy to glue in and bend and conform. So that's another little tip. Again, if you want me to do a video on that, I will do. But that's my take on the Escorts. I really hope you like it. As I said, please subscribe and help me build this channel. I really, really appreciate it. But thanks for taking the time to watch. Until next time, all the best.